Right then, today I fancied doing something a little different. Something teeny tiny, just a few inches across, a miniature landscape. I didn't plan it really. It was one of those lovely spontaneous little drawings where you sit down and let your pencils take you for a wander. Honestly, it felt more like play than work, which is how I think art should feel sometimes. Now, here's the thing. I've never actually drawn a full landscape before. Not one that stood on its own 2 feet anyway. Sure, I've popped a few backgrounds in behind animals here and there, but a drawing that was just the land, sky and a sheep, that was a first. And I'll admit it was a bit of an experiment, a bit of a let's see what happens kind of a day. I kept it small on purpose, figured I'd ease myself in gently rather than diving headfirst into a full A3 countryside vista. And I have to say, I'm actually really proud of how it turned out. When you try something new, especially something outside your usual subject, it's a bit like being a beginner again, isn't it? Your hands kind of know what to do, but your brain's having a little bit of a wobble, going, wait, this isn't a whisker or a nose or an eyeball. What do I do with that shape? But then you get into the swing of it and all of a sudden your muscle memory kicks in and it's like, oh, hang on, I do know how to do this. So I started with the sky, always a good place to begin, just gently easing in that darker blue-grey, the one from 𝓽𝓲𝓷𝔂 range called Platinum. It was such a gorgeous moody shade, a bit like the skies we get here in Yorkshire when it can't quite decide if it wants to rain or behave itself. You know the type, bits of cloud still clinging on, but with a hopeful patch of blue just peeking through. It gives everything a sort of peaceful melancholy, very British. I wasn't precious about it, just used a light touch at first, whispering the colour on in soft, thin layers. Honestly, that's where this paper really shines. I used the Strathmore Bristol Vellum 500 series. It's got a lovely, gentle tooth to it. Not too rough, but enough grip to catch the pigment and let you build things up slowly. And when I say slowly, I mean slowly. I do love a good bit of layering. If you're heavy-handed too soon, it's like putting your Yorkshire puddings in the oven before it's hot enough. It doesn't end well. Once I had the sky in place, I started sketching in the land, and because the drawing was so small, I didn't need to trace or measure, just free-handed the basic shapes, gently outlining hills and a bit of distant shrubbery. Nothing fancy, it doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, I think that's part of the charm. It's the feeling of the landscape that matters more than the exact measurements or realism. And of course, there's the sheep. Now, let's be clear. This little sheep may be small, but it's definitely a focal point. It's nestled just off-centred, giving the eye something to rest on. Tiny, yes, but perfectly formed. Well, its head's a bit off, if I'm honest, but it's not that bad. I had to be really mindful of the shadows around its chest and under its tummy, and the shadow it casts on the grass too. Just those subtle little touches that help it feel grounded. There's something really satisfying about seeing such a small detail come to life with just a few careful marks. The greens were, let's say, a journey. Green is one of those colours that can send even confident artists into a bit of a panic, especially when it comes to grass. It's like, how many types of green actually are there? And why does none of them look quite right once it's on the paper? I started out with the 𝓽𝓲𝓷𝔂 because I really like how they feel on smoother surfaces. And the greens in that range are actually really lovely. Moss green, olive green, grass green, all very natural and earthy. But as I got further into the piece, I found myself drifting back to my trusty Polychromos pencils. I just know them really well, their colours, their behaviour, how they layer. You know, when you're working with something familiar and it's just easier to trust your instincts, that's what happened here. The brighter greens from the polys gave me that little lift I needed in some of the grassier areas and helped add that bit of life and variety to the landscape. Mixing brands might sound scandalous to some, but let me tell you, it's not only allowed, it's encouraged. These aren't rival football teams. They're just tools in your kit. And if something works better for one bit than another, why not use it? Now, burnishing isn't something I do very often. It looks lovely, but it can be rough on the wrists. And let's be honest, I've got enough pencil miles on these hands already. But with a surface like vellum, burnishing really does help pull everything together. I found that soft layering followed by a light burnish, sometimes with a white pencil, sometimes with a lighter version of the base colour, really helped me fill the tooth and blend the layers into a really smooth finish. The colours almost melt together and the paper just glows. It's funny, such a small drawing, only a couple of hours work, but I feel a real sense of achievement when I finished. Not because it's the best thing I've ever done, it isn't, and not because it was easy, it wasn't, but because I tried something new. I gave myself permission to be a beginner again, to test the waters and to play. And you know what? That's what I'd encourage anyone to do, especially if you're sitting there thinking, I've never drawn a landscape, or I'm scared of greens, or what if it's rubbish? All completely normal thoughts, by the way. But here's the thing, you'll never know until you give it a go. Small start, don't aim for perfect, let yourself explore. Pop in a sheep, even if its head's a bit funny. Let the hills be lumpy. Let the sky be a bit unpredictable, just like the real Yorkshire weather. And above all, enjoy the process. Enjoy getting lost in those soft layers and gentle pencil strokes, because that, my lovely, is where the magic happens. And if you wanted to draw along with me, you can find the full tutorial in my Ignite membership.